are the New York Knicks. I'm back, rocking in New York. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New York. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks taking no shorts, it's like winter.
New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K.
Everybody say go New York, go New York, go!
Hey everybody, welcome to the New York Knicks Show. I am Jay. We are part of the Lineups Podcast Network at lineups.com, the Big Heads Media Network at bigheadsmedia.com, N-Radio. Got something a little different for you today. This episode is actually an episode of the Long Suffering Knicks Podcast. I did a guest spot on there, so there's no Mark, but we had a really good conversation and want to introduce you guys to the Long Suffering Podcast. So the rest of this episode will be that. We will be back next week. We actually are interviewing an NBA Hall of Famer next week, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you can go to the NewYorkKnicksPodcast.com, NY Knicks Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. And without further ado, here is the Long Suffering Podcast with yours truly.
You know, it's pretty difficult to put into words how disgusted I am, how depressed I am about the New York Knicks.
If there is a sixth game, it'll be played in Madison Square Garden Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Frazier hits another one.
From the outside. Bradley stays outside against Reardon this time. Frazier goes up. He's got two more. It's
In particular, with the way the Clippers have been shooting. And Brittany Ewing is certainly enjoying the ball.
Porter got it away. No good. Just missed. And the New York Knicks have become the second team in NBA history to knock off a number one. An 8 over a number one, only the second time in NBA history. The New York Knicks select R.J. Barrett, Toronto Duke University.
Here we go. Welcome to another episode of Long Suffering, a New York Knicks podcast where we discuss our takes on the good, the bad, and the downright frustrating week-to-week news of the New York Knicks. My name is Brian. My partners in pain are Jay and Troy, and you can find us socially on Twitter and on Instagram and our own Facebook page. So follow, share, comment, and do all the things that you do when you're supposed to be doing them. Also, join the New York Knicks Nation Facebook page, where the three of us are admins. Oh my God, admins. Wow. I know it's a slow week in Knicks news when I pick up my phone and I don't have 100 unread messages from Jay and Troy. So it happens every week except this week. We have a guest today. I'm going to introduce him in one hot second, but we are in the thick of the finals. Game 6 is tonight. And for those of you who don't know, the Lakers put on black Mamba jerseys for Game 5 and then got beat. I'm not a superstitious person, but I would have voted that down in the locker room. Just wear your purple and gold and close this thing out so we can talk about how Anthony Davis is not going to be a Knick next year. Also, Alonzo Trier, old ISO Zoe, is going to be playing in Turkey next season. And finally, if you grew up in the tri-state area and you're a sports fan, then you definitely listened to WFAN at one point or another, so you would know about the scandal with morning host Craig Carton of the Boomer and Carton morning show. HBO made a documentary about him, and it's up on HBO Max now. I watched it. I hated Carton. I feel a little bit bad for him because he did go through some trauma. But if WFAN hires him back, I'm quitting on them. I'm out. I'm done. So many other people have been scratching and clawing, trying to get a voice on that channel. And I don't know why you would take back a guy who betrayed the public trust. So it's not good. Give somebody else a shot. That's what I say. Let him go do a show out in the fucking Southwest or something. Anyway, our guest today is one half of the New York Knicks show. Check them out wherever you listen to podcasts. Jay McKenna, thanks for spending your Sunday with the three of us. Before we go into questions and all that good stuff, there are two Jays on the show currently right now. which hasn't happened yet. This is a first for us. So I'll be referring to our guest as Jay and our level-headed, hypercritical Knicks fan Jay as Jay Bones for today. It's October, Spirit Halloween, all that good stuff. So thanks for being here, Jay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And Jay Bone, sorry for taking your Jason title today. But
No, that's quite okay. I'll survive. Thank you.
Jay, it's a pleasure having you, man. And obviously, like Brian said, Jay is one half of the duo that includes Mark on one of the top-rated Knicks podcasts, the New York Knicks Show. If you guys haven't heard about them yet, they already, past 500 plus episodes. Safe to say they've covered countless amounts of Knicks topics on our beloved Knicks. And Jay, I just wanted to ask, how does it feel to be over 500 episodes on your podcast?
a little depressing. Don't have much to show for it. We've seen a lot of bad trades, a lot of 17-win seasons, not a lot of playoff games. So we started the show this season. We signed Amari, and we're like, oh, this will be a good starting point. Got a good team. We're going to see a lot of playoffs and maybe a championship. And yeah, none of that played out.
Right, exactly, especially during that time. And that was a real hopeful time to start, so I can understand why you did. Obviously, you all kind of came crumbling down a little bit besides the Cinderella story of 2011. But really wanted to talk about, and you kind of just mentioned it a little bit, how did it all come together with you and Mark? Because I know you guys were really beloved Knicks fans. So how did that really start in terms of just having the idea of, hey, let's create a podcast?
So I started a comedy podcast in 2008, and early into that first season, Mark joined, and after we would do a show, we would talk about the Knicks for like 40 minutes. And after a while, I'm like, we should probably just record this and make it a separate show because we're having some good conversations here. And that was kind of how the Knicks podcast was born.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I understand that, like you said before, you guys, I think on your website, you guys say you're bitter Knicks fans. I just called you impassioned because I feel like there's a lot of Knicks fans that are just going to say they're bitter.
Yeah, we
but,
can that too. Yeah.
Right. But where did your love and probably sometimes bitterness comes from with the Knicks? Where did that start?
So Mark and I are about the same age, and we started watching the Knicks in the very early 90s. So we got to see a lot of winning. Not a championship, but a consistent, deep playoff team and a couple finals. So huge Knicks fans. And it was, some of our first sporting experiences. So we're like, okay, they went through a little bit of a dry period, but, things are going to get better. Then we got more and more bitter as 2000 and on hit. And I guess we got spoiled early on. So that's how... it just gets harder every year after seeing all that winning and good moves and signings and trades, and then everything the team has devolved into. It's gotten tough lately.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that. I mean, if our show doesn't say it enough, long suffering is per the note of the Knicks at this point. Lastly, before we jump into some of these Knicks news for the week, I just wanted to ask, you did speak about the other podcast that you have, the comedy podcast, which is called The Brink of Sanity. Could you explain to our viewers what that is and where they can listen?
Sure. You can listen to that on iTunes and Spotify or our website, Brink of Sanity Show. It's me, Mark, and another co-host, Bry, and it's basically a mix of our personal life experiences, funny stories, things we pull from the news. We make some top 5 lists. We prank call Nigerian scammers, a bunch of different things.
That sounds great. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you guys haven't listened to it already, I just have to recommend their comedy podcast is pretty alluring and funny. And once you start listening, I think that you're going to keep going. So beware and be careful. But yeah, very good podcast. I would definitely recommend.
Appreciate it.
Bones, you got anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, how did you make the transition? Because you started your podcast, prior to Amari punching the fire extinguisher. So I just wanted to know, when things started going downhill, how did you guys maintain the Knicks podcast? Because I'm sure a lot of fans were just kind of the depression kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, so basically we talk ourselves into the team every offseason. And so we start off very excited in September, October, and then you could just see the spiral into a little bit of a depression as the season goes on. But we kind of give ourselves a 3-month pep talk before each season. So that's kind of what keeps us going.
I see.
Sounds like something that I do the same thing,
Yeah,
to be
I was gonna
honest.
Yeah, I've been doing that for like 20 some odd years now.
We're like, oh, Bill Walker, he could hit some threes. This might work out.
Right? Is that Billy Walker doing that? Oh man, he's gonna be the great. Never mind.
Bargiani, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. We never, for the record, we never talked ourselves into Barks.
Okay, that's one good thing you did.
Oh, all right, good. That's the litmus test
so,
actually to be on this show. So.
That was a step.
Good job, very good job.
So we and you guys are gonna have to excuse me because I went running the other day, and I guess I like ran through like I ran through a trail. I went through like a bunch of like dander dust or something. I don't know. So I've been sneezing like crazy. I don't have the corona, but I am definitely have some sort of sniffle. So sorry about that in advance. But each week we've been, as we're getting ready for the draft, Jay, we've we talk about who we think the Knicks are going to take, if they're going to move at all. What's your take on it? Are they going to move? Who are they going to grab?
I really hope they don't move. I just don't trust them making draft day trades. So I'm always a proponent of best player available. I know the Knicks haven't had a good point guard in about 25 years, but if somebody else is there that looks really good, that they feel good about, I'm fine with them taking that player as well.
Who do you if gun to your head, who do you think they're going to take with the 8th pick?
I think they're going to take maybe Okoro.
Okay.
That's a safe bet. I mean, Mark
Safe
pretty
bet.
much said the same as well last week. They're looking into him. I would say if they're really high on DSJ, which I mean, he does seem like he has internal support. We will touch on that a little bit later. If they are thinking that, then maybe they don't pick a point guard with the with their top 10 pick, right? With their 8th pick. Maybe they do that with their 27th pick with RJ Hampton, whoever kind of falls between that. I think that's probably more likely. So I kind of agree with that. Okoro's definitely on the list there. I still feel like Hayes is still there though, too, to be honest. I don't know about you, Brian, but I still have Hayes as my pick.
I think Hayes is going to go earlier than any of us anticipated. I'm firmly back in the Tyrese Halliburton camp. I'm actually curious if Bones has changed at all. Bones, where you at?
Nope, not changing. Devin Vassell is not just a player that I think will be available for sure, but is the type of player I think Tom Thibodeau would like to add 3 and D. I mean, the guy's a really good shooter, and the Knicks have like none of that. And I don't know if I can sit there and watch Julius Randle chuck threes anymore. So
nobody wants to watch that.
So
nobody wants to watch.
I'm praying somebody not only takes the ball out of his hands, although Vassell probably wouldn't do as much as that, but just to somebody who can get some perimeter shots and who also can play a little bit of defense. And it's not in the realm of possibility that he'll be picked that high, quite honestly.
I just wanted to say really quickly, CBS Sports NBA Draft Board, just because I have to read it, because I want to hear everybody's expression here. This is the top 10 on their list as of today. Number 1, LaMelo Ball. Number 2, Killian Hayes. Number 3, Tyrese Halliburton. Number 4, James Wiseman. Anthony Edwards falls to 5. Unganku goes to 6. Obi Toppin at 7. Denny at 8. Patrick Williams at 9. Kira Lewis Jr. at 10. That rounds up all the time. I just want to look where Vassell falls. Vassell falls to 14 and Okoro falls to 15 on this list.
Real quick. So I switched over to Tankathon from the Ringer because
the Ringer just isn't updated that often.
The Ringer hasn't been up. They were updating every week, and now they're not updating at all. And Tankathon has Edwards at 1, Wiseman at 2, LaMelo at 3, Hayes at 4, Denny at 5, Ogankwo 6, Okoro, Toppin to the Knicks at 8, Vassell at 9, and
like it.
Halliburton at 10.
What
They
a
would
dream.
also be taking Trey Jones with the 27th pick and Daniel
Oh.
Oturo, the center out of Minnesota, with the 38th pick.
This is literally what I said. I wanted Jones in 27, except you can swap Vassell and Toppin there, and I'd be right. Except that I want Toppin over Vassell, but that's besides the point.
So,
Huh.
I'm switching to Tankathon now because I did the sim lottery that they have, and I just clicked on it like 4 or 5 times before, as I was, prepping for the show, and at least 3 of those times the Knicks moved from the 8th spot to include the 4th, the 2nd, and the 3rd pick.
Let me ask you guys a question. Actually, I want to start with.
Excuse me, not the 3rd, the 1st pick. I apologize.
Let me ask you guys a question. I want to actually start with Jay. Which in terms of like our draft, we always talk about the picks that we want to see, right? Who would you not like to see? Like, who would you not like to be here called their name called at number 8 for us? Would it like Patrick Williams? If you heard his name, would it be like, oh damn, again? Like whose name would you not want to hear called?
LaMelo Ball.
That would be if we traded up, actually, if that happens.
Yeah, if we trade up and then draft him, and then we were like, oh yeah, he really can't shoot. I'm gonna be
oh, that wasn't a thing. He
turned into a pumpkin. Oh, okay.
Got it.
But hey, I mean, he's 6'8", and then we've got a crazy father, but it's Knicks. It's good.
What about you, bro? Whose name wouldn't you want to hear called at number 8?
Cole Anthony.
Cole Anthony, yeah. I agree. What about you, Jay? Jay Bone, excuse me. Jay Bone.
Shit. I'd be kind of disappointed with Cole Anthony also, I think, especially at 8.
Yeah, if he goes at 8, well, first of all, we're not even looking to draft him. We're leaning against it according to reports. But even if we did, him going at 8 is very high. I don't think he's gonna go at 8.
I think the thought of trading like the 27th pick down or trading back to get him with the 8th pick. I know at one point it was like it was going around the grapevine that the Knicks were interested in doing that just to get him at a good spot and try to get some assets along the way. And I think that would be a huge mistake.
Yeah, I don't think this is the draft where you move. Again, I'm agreeing.
I agree. This is not the draft where you move, unless if the Knicks moved up first and got fucking and just to get Anthony Edwards, I'd be more okay with that than moving to get LaMelo Ball. But
the only reason they move is for LaMelo. I mean, Edwards is a great steal. Don't get me wrong, but if they moved up for whatever the reason may be, they would only be doing it for LaMelo. There's not other reason for them to go after anybody else.
But are either one of these guys good enough to
LaMelo
move up?
Or Anthony
not
Edwards?
In this draft. We're not. I don't think in this draft, even for Anthony Edwards, I think the cost that you're gonna have to do to get that number 1 pick, because Jay said it before. We talked about this. It's about that value, right? Even though the number 1 pick incidentally doesn't mean that it's going to be something, it's going to be equivalent to something really good. But because the number 1 pick holds that value of like the best promise to get the best pick, it has too much value. So you're going to have to trade too much to give.
Oh, you mean the number equivalency? Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, correct.
Yeah. That's why I don't want to have to do that, because you're going to have to, no matter what, the Knicks are always going to have to give up way more just to get a prospect again. I don't think it's worth it to get another prospect in this particular draft. It just does not make sense to me.
All right. Well, Mark Behrman of the New York Post reports that while Chris Paul is on the Knicks trade radar, Victor Oladipo is the higher priority. I'm fairly certain we did talk about this before, but we talk every week about the Knicks. So, and this was this was coming from Berms. So Berman reports that Oladipo could go for 2 first rounders, Julius Randle and DSJ or Frank. Jay, what do you think about a free or not free agent? Excuse me, a trade acquisition for Pacers Oladipo?
It is a little bit of a risk. He did not look like he really recovered at all last season. On the other hand, it's a 1-year rental. He's $21 million next year, and then he's a free agent. I think it depends how much you want to give up for a guy that you're going to have to re-sign in the following year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm against trading draft picks at this point. It seems to never work out. So I would almost rather wait a year, see if he does look better, and then make him an offer in the following season.
In free agency, yeah. Just as a note before I ask Jay and Troy, there was reports that he wasn't happy in Indiana, but he denies wanting a change of scenery. Bones, what do you think?
Well, first
I like
of all,
saying Bones. Bones is going to stick. I'm telling you.
yeah, I don't mind it actually.
It's pretty cool. It's
yeah.
pretty. It's not like cheesy like T-Bone.
there's just no meaning behind it. You just call them Bones.
There's none.
What is going on this morning right now?
So yeah, first of all, if you're unhappy in Indiana, I don't really think coming to the dysfunctional Knicks is going to make you thrilled. But that being said, well, maybe we won't be dysfunctional, right? But anyway, that being said, I kind of agree with Jay. I don't think like giving up assets for a guy that you could just wait a year and then sign after he's proven he could stay healthy. Yeah, it reeks of like Carmelo Anthony without the healthy part, and he was going to be a free agent that upcoming offseason. The Knicks are giving me all kinds of like ex-wife cheated on you vibes kind of a thing, where they promise they'll change, you take them back, and then they start, she's got the heels on, she's going out like on a Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, just to hang out with the girls. It's very reminiscent. I don't like it. I just hold on to the draft picks. We can draft as many guys as you freaking can. Kind of what Berman said, just keep drafting and drafting and drafting, and eventually you hope one of these guys is a stud.
Yeah, it's the law of averages. Okay. We have 7 first-round picks in the next 4 years, and the Knicks suck. So they're going to continue to suck for a few years. We're going to get another lottery pick after this year. We're destined to get someone good. I don't like the win now mentality. I think getting the 8th seed isn't going to make any Knicks fans like forget how hard the last 20 some odd years were, and they're not going to make all the problems go away. Free agency and youth is the only bargaining chip that we have. You don't want to give that away. And I think, some of the stuff, and before I go to you, Troy, just real quick, some of the stuff that Berman said in this article, where he was naming off players, Chris Paul, obviously, but he's too fucking old and he's making too much money. We know that. OKC is going to want Knox. They're going to want Randall, and they're going to want a first round pick. The Knicks, first of all, they say they were going to be more willing to trade Frank or DSJ. And then, as we're going to get to later, some people in the organization want to keep DSJ around, and they hired Kenny Payne for Knox to get back on track. And then to put the cherry on top of the Chris Paul thing, we would presumably then get Carmelo Anthony, a 36-year-old Carmelo Anthony. That doesn't make any sense. None of that makes sense to me. Berman also mentioned Embiid, but I don't think that the Philly's going to split him and Simmons up. Paul George is apparently in trade rumors as well. But but you'd have to give up Mitchell Robinson or RJ to get the guy in the final year of his contract, and that to me is fucking absurd. And then of course, until it's not a thing anymore, Karl Anthony Towns is another player that Berman listed, and I had a thing written out for that, but I don't even want to go into that because it's exhausting.
Yeah,
so
I just question the strategy here. Berman said it, and I know we don't want to rehash it, but it's like, are we really trying to put together a winning club this year? Is that really the plan? Because it's so counterintuitive to everything that's been done for the past couple of years. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Jay, how many wins would make you happy this year as a Knicks fan? Like realistic wins.
Me or Jay?
No, your Bones.
Oh, okay.
Stay in your lane.
I mean, I guess 30, 35, I guess.
That's the magic number. How long have I been saying that, guys?
A couple weeks.
Troy, what do you think about the Oladipo thing?
Yeah, I just have to say, so we recently put up a post for Chris Paul or Oladipo on the Nation page, and obviously we got a lot of traffic for that. I just want to read a couple of responses here. Game over. No. Oladipo. No, game over. Oladipo, CP3, Oladipo. And then this one guy who says this, which I really like. We're gonna suck for another 5 to 7 years if we make trades for a big name and trade away young players and picks. That's essentially where my belief is as well. We can't do this. Listen, I'm all for getting, star players, sure. But star players who are either on a contract that's massive, on a contract that's expiring, who could potentially come here in free agency if we, make our team good enough to attract anybody. So, I mean, there are other ways we can get stars. Oladipo's coming off of a really horrific injury, and he did, like Jay said, he doesn't look the same. He hasn't looked the same. I think that's why there's even talks about him moving, because again, he hasn't looked the same. And there's a lot of stars like that. I mean, there's Buddy Hield. I mean, you have, what's the point guard in De'Aaron Fox? I mean, there's a couple of people that we're looking at that we're hoping to get, that we even tried to get before. Even Porzingis, we tried to get De'Aaron Fox. I mean, so there's obviously players that we're looking to try to go after. And then you have the free agents like, Fred VanVleet, if we go after him, who Nick Nurse doesn't believe he's going to leave anyways. So there's a couple of things that we're looking at, but we have no determination on where we want to go. My take is that you draft well, you develop your talent, and then you proceed to find free agents through free agency rather than having to trade away picks and things like that. If a trade makes sense, sure. And I want to say this about Chris Paul just before I end it here. If the Knicks took Chris Paul on, it would absolutely be a favor to the Thunder and Sam Presti.
Absolutely. There's no way it's not.
Right.
There's
so
no
if
way.
we're doing that, there is no need for me to say, hey, yeah, I'll give you these 2 draft picks for Paul. No, I'm taking his 40+ million contract from you so you can have cap space to do something. If anything, you can take Julius Randle and, Reggie Bullock and call it a day. Is give me Chris Paul. Like, I know that's not going to happen. They're going to want more, but essentially if you're talking about contracts, I'm giving you expiring ones and taking on a large one that you can't get rid of. If anything, we should be called even at this point. That's how I feel about Paul's contract. I don't think we should be giving up any type of draft picks for Paul. It should be, oh, thank you so much, Knicks, for taking Chris Paul's contract from me. That's how it should be.
I agree. And the other thing is getting a guy like Paul. What does that do? I mean, the team is really thin as it is, and you're going to give up assets for it. Now you're going to have Paul with the crappy Knicks roster minus a couple players. What's the point? I don't get what the point, other than to sell tickets, I guess.
But to be honest, I think the reason why is because of what they did with Jason Kidd a couple years ago. When Jason Kidd, that aging point guard, was on the floor.
No.
He was at. Well, I'm just saying that's exactly. A lot of Knicks fans are mentioning the fact that last time we were good is when we had a seasoned point guard running the offense, and that's what they keep mentioning Jason Kidd for. I assume a lot of Knicks fans believe if Paul was in that driver's seat, that it would equal, more consistency, more wins. Even though it definitely won't. The roster is even different. But a lot of fans.
Yeah, but this
well, all right. You know what? Fuck me. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's because Jason Kidd had fucking Carmelo Anthony playing right next to him. We don't have any. We're nowhere close to that.
Yo, Rasheed Wallace was better than every player on the team right now. Okay.
Yes.
39.
Ball.
So
this is. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
ahead,
the only thing is
you're about to say is what I would say. Okay, go ahead.
Well, actually, no, it's not. Seth Rosenthal, when he was on this show a couple weeks back, talked about how there's this farce that this thing that Chris Paul's going to bring in the stars. Like, no, he's not. No, he's not. That's the mentality of the Knicks. Is if we get Chris Paul, then maybe we can sign some other guys here, or we can add another guy because they'll know that there's a guy who can run the organization from a player perspective, who can a floor general, who can facilitate, who's got a proven pedigree of winning. Yeah, not championships, a lot of games, and then getting hurt and losing. So that's the only thing that I think that would be the thought process behind bringing in Chris Paul, unless you're throwing the whole rebuild out the window, which again is stupid. But
that was everything I was going to say.
Oh,
because
awesome.
because I agree with you 100%. I don't believe that because the Knicks are the Knicks.
Right.
And they're not going to be like, oh, hey, Chris Paul's going to the Knicks. Good luck, Chris, is what the rest of the league is going to say. Enjoy your payday and your fucking headache. You're going to need a lot of Tylenol for that.
Are you in the same camp, Jay, as well?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Knicks are always trying to get a guy that will bring guys, and who would want to go to a team with a end of his career point guard and a crappy supporting roster? Like, there's not going to be a line of guys going, "Yeah, sign me up for that." You need to build a team like Miami did, but to do that, they're going to have to nail some draft picks, which they have not been able to do yet.
Agreed.
I just got 30 hate mails from Frank Truthers, but still.
Oh, absolutely. You're about to hear a lot more.
But you know what? No,
go ahead. Go ahead. No. I was going to move into the next topic. You go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, the thing with Miami too, though, is they never were bad. They managed to draft players at 13 and 14, like Adebayo, and Hero. They didn't need top draft picks, and they always had an organizational culture of winning. They never tanked. So, you just need to nail draft picks where they fall is 100% right. This is not like we just need to keep sucking till we get the number 1 pick and then we nail that, and then all of a sudden we're going to be epic. And guys like Duncan Robinson are undrafted. They know what to do when they get guys. It's also about how you develop guys. Guys that can nailing a guy that can play and then knowing how to develop them. That's it. That's what we got to do. Don't bring in Chris Paul. Don't do this to me, please. Please.
I would rather see them bring in if they're going to go, make a big splash. Let's talk about Fred VanVleet. He's a free agent. We've talked about this before. Ian Begley wrote an article this week saying there is a report of the Knicks willing to make an offer to the Toronto point guard for $20 million a season. By comparison to the Chris Paul trade, by comparison to the Chris Paul trade, this seems like genius. If they don't take a point guard in the lottery or trade down for a mid-level project player in the draft, you're setting yourself up for success and keeping your 2 bargaining chips, which I mentioned before, are youth and cap space. So I'm okay with Fred VanVleet. I really like him. I think he's a great player, and I think he would, he brings a winning culture with him to the Knicks. It would be a good thing. But again, you have to see where you land in, who's available in the draft and what you end up taking. So that's my take on Fred VanVleet. It's been the same ever since we started talking about him. I'm gonna kick it over to our guest, Jay. Jay, what do you think about the Knicks, the possibility of the Knicks picking up Fred VanVleet in free agency?
Hey, Fred, I know you're on a championship contender, but how would you like to play with Dennis Smith Jr.? I mean, you're going to have to offer him, I think, max to get him to even consider moving. I just don't see him wanting to for what they have right now.
Troy?
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. I mean, although I'm a VanVleet fan, I think that he's a great talent. He's gonna get better. He's young, so obviously I think for us, it makes sense to grab him. Do I think he's gonna come here though? I mean, like I said, it really depends on his feelings toward it. Nick Nurse, like I said already, mentioned he'd be very, very shocked if VanVleet left. So I mean, I don't know how that's gonna happen because obviously they have a couple of contracts they have to honor too. So I don't know what's it gonna mean for Toronto's cap space, but. I don't know if they could really retain him for the money that he's looking for. Nonetheless, even if we could get him for $20 million, would I do it? Yeah. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know yet. It really depends on where we draft. I still feel, I think I felt this for weeks. I've not changed yet. I feel like the Knicks pick up Hayes. I feel like Hayes is going to be available at 8. I feel like the Knicks are going to take him, and that's who we're going to have. If it's not him, then it's either Okoro or Toppin. Surprisingly, if he falls. But I'm still sticking with Hayes. And if that happens, I don't see us going after VanVleet. I see us obviously trying to develop Hayes as soon as he gets implemented into the lineup. So that's just my personal take on it.
Bones.
Yeah, I think you really got to see what happens in the draft before we can fully answer this question completely. I will say I kind of agree with what Jay is saying. I don't really think he'd necessarily come here, especially now that I look at Lowry's going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason, and he's getting up there in age a little bit. So I'm not sure at 34 years old, it'll be his age 35 season, if Toronto's going to want to throw him a lot of money. And in order to retain Van Vliet, they're going to have to offer him a significant amount of money. And I think being able to be the number one point guard, or eventually within the life of that new contract that you sign, maybe another 1-year deal for Lowry or such, if you can become the guy after that and stay in a culture of winning in a place you're already comfortable, you've got you've got a house and all that stuff, makes a lot more sense than coming to the Knicks, especially if the money is close. And this offseason is a little bit going to be different because it's the offseason of uncertainty, as Mark Berman put it. We don't even know when they're going to play again. And so to make a move, in this offseason, with teams might be a little bit more reluctant to throw down a lot of cap space, makes it kind of uncertain. So for those reasons, I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. For those reasons, I don't think he's going to necessarily come here. But I don't think it'll actually take a max to get him to come here. I think it might be in the $20 to $22 million per year, 3-4 year contract type of deal.
Yeah.
That might get it done. But I don't know if you want to do that. I always say you overpay in the NBA. It's just, who do you want to overpay for? I don't think that's a bad overpay. But given, that he could probably stay in Toronto for close, doesn't make a lot of sense for Van Vliet to move on personally, I feel.
All right. Well, Steph Bondy, this is kind of good news. This is better news. Steph Bondy of the New York Daily News reports that Julius Randle is very impressed with Tom Thibodeau. Here's a quote. "He's a beast as far as the details of the game. He doesn't miss anything. He makes sure everything we're doing it the right way, and we're doing it at game speed. And he's all about us challenging each other, pushing each other to get better. So he's a beast with the details and how he operates in terms of pushing us and challenging us. And for us, we have a lot of young players, and that's a great thing to be challenged like that." Look, Julius Randle seems pretty happy with the way things are going. I mean, that matters if you like Julius Randle. If you don't, you're just like, get rid of him, get rid of him, get rid of him. COVID's kind of forced the teams on the out to take these baby steps, especially with the OTAs that we just closed out this week. But I think Julius is emerging as a leader on this team. He wants to win. He's in great shape. I think Tibbs can fix him because Julius seems very receptive to being fixed. I don't think anyone wants to go out on the court and be hated by the home fans the way that this guy's fucking hated. And he was very frustrated last season, and it can't be helpful to see your name in all these trade talks. I know it's part of business, but like, we're talking about people here. So I think this is good. I mean, this is kind of what you want to see. You don't want to see a reluctant, the guy who was the door prize in last year's free agency. You don't want to see him reluctant and like giving like one word answers to how things are going. This is okay. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's never a bad thing when the players and coaches are clicking. Randall, I think fans seem to love to hate. He's a decent player. He's got flaws. That spin move is, if I was Tibbs, I would pull him out every time he does that. But he's not a bad player, and to have him on the same page, I'm happy with that. Again, it's everyone is saying the right things in the offseason. We'll see how it plays out when the regular season starts, or if he's even on the team when the regular season starts. But so far, it's a good sign.
If he's first day of game one of the 2021 season, because it looks like it's just going to be 2021. There's no 2020 involved now.
Yeah.
Julius Randle takes the court. How do you feel? Good, bad, indifferent?
At this point, kind of indifferent. I'm kind of looking at this season as another almost lost season, but a season where the Knicks should just be looking at, all right, who are we keeping, who are we not? We have a bunch of young guys that are going to be due for contracts soon. We have a lot of expiring free agents. We have to see who is actually going to be on this team long term and who to get rid of. So I see it more of like a scouting season than anything. We got to be realistic. They're not going to make the playoffs. If they do, they're going to get swept in the first round. So
Sure.
let's see what we got.
Troy?
Yeah, I gotta say, I like Julius. I think I've always liked Julius. I've liked Julius since we've gotten him. And I know a lot of Knicks fans are really sour on him, obviously because of the spin moves and obviously the uncontrollable dribbles in the paint, in traffic, with 3 people on you. But even though we've seen it, I always thought Julius had a bad rap because he was kind of asked to do everything when everything is not his skill set. I've been the same on Julius since he started. I like him, high motor, super hard worker, knows how to win, or at least wants to win in that sense. Really wants to win, always a passion to win. The thing is with him is if you tell him to be that point forward and control the offense, he's gonna suck. Because that's not what he's supposed to do. He's not a LeBron James. He's not going to do that. It takes a very special talent to be able to run an offense and be good at your position. Julius Randle is really going into his position. He's a double-double monster. Probably going to get better at that. His points per game dipped a little bit from his transition from New Orleans to the Knicks. But that's just suffice to say, when you're a leader of the team and you're asked to do all these other things, the intangible is not really scoring. You're passing. You're running the ball up. You're trying to make and create shots for your team. So that makes sense. The thing is, his talent pool around him did no favors for him. Who was stretching the floor for him? Who was a danger from 3? I can't think of anybody besides besides Morris.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody really a danger stretching the floor. So, of course, nobody cares about his skill set. They're not going to go after him. They're going to double team him because he's going to try to uncontrollably pass through traffic, and that's exactly how they're going to get the steal and go forward. It was a classic play. They always did it. Everybody knew what to do. Julius Randle's game is not that. Julius Randle is supposed to be in the paint. He's supposed to be a bully ball guy, driving in. Like, he's strong at those things. So if he could do a pick and roll with a good point guard, that's his money. He was doing that with Lonzo all day in LA, and he was doing really well when he was doing it, when Lonzo was on point anyways. So, I mean, that's his game. He can definitely reach out and expand it. If he wants to get a 3, get a 3. Don't show it in the game, though, unless Thibs feels that it's game ready. But don't try something new, which he was doing all the time, trying things he normally never did in New Orleans. You never saw him do anything like this. But he started doing it with the Knicks because he was told to be our leader, help this team move forward, do these things when it wasn't his skill set. He has a bad rap, and I think that under Thibs, you're going to see him thrive.
Bones.
Yeah, so in the midst of listening to Troy, I forgot what the original question was. I'm not even going to lie, but
Julius Randle, he seems to be receptive to Tibbs. He's liking it. He's showing up. He showed up early and he's staying late, doing all the things that you want out of a leader. How do you feel about it? Good, bad, or indifferent? If he ends up on the court as a Knick next season.
Yeah, Randle. Troy's kind of right. Randle gets like this really bad rap. I don't think he's a terrible player. He's actually a good player. And he's young, and his contract really isn't even that bad. It's just a microcosm of just him being surrounded by nothing and being forced, pretty much what Troy said, and being forced to do a lot of things he's not comfortable with. I'd like to see him in Nick. I mean, I wouldn't be broken up about it if they moved him. I'd be more concerned about what they're moving him for, because the whole idea was to get young, athletic players on relatively good team contracts. So I'm not sure, what you think you're going to do. I'd much rather them get rid of guys like Dennis Smith Jr., who do nothing to contribute to the team. But I'm okay with Randall's being here. Like, again, it's not like we're locked into him for 6 years. He's like 2 left. And if anything, you hold on to him because he may be a tradable asset the following season with an expiring contract. So there's like lots of reasons to hold on to him. I mean, are the Knicks going somewhere that I don't know about? Like,
we're gonna win a championship this year. You didn't hear?
Right. And honestly, if we are, Julius Randle is like a double every night. Just cut back on those turnovers and those wretched 3-pointers. And he's really not of all the bad players the Knicks have brought in, this is not one of them. The criticism is just because of the David Fizdale and Mike Miller. It's what it is, and just being forced to do things.
Positionless basketball.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Positionless basketball. Yeah, that made sense.
I'm glad you brought up DSJ because this is the our last talking point today. Lots of talk this week about DSJ. He arrived early for camp, worked with Tibbs and the coaches to try to get himself back on track. He's got support within the organization to get a shot at a comeback after last year's atrocious season. He looks like he cut his hair, which is good. And he's working out with Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, coordinated by his agent. Rauf trained Ben Gordon, has trained a bunch of other players. Tibbs is a big fan of DSJ, made that known during the 2017 draft. How do we feel about a DSJ? Do we think that DSJ actually has the ability to be the player that we all hoped he was going to be? I'll start with Jay.
I would say an emphatic no. I haven't seen anything from. He has flashes of athleticism, but I haven't seen anything that shows me that he can run the point. If anything, he's maybe a shooting guard who can't really shoot. But that's the problem. The Knicks have all these guards that aren't real point guards that they're trying to just cram into that position. I don't really think Frank is a point guard. Back to Julius Randle, he'll look a lot better when they get a real point guard in that position. But Smith isn't it. I would really hope they just move on from him soon because his minutes have been so painful, and it's not like it's his first year. There's so many guys that come in and do so much more than he has. I just don't see it.
Bones.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I 100% agree. The only reason Dennis Smith Jr. is still on the team is because he was drafted 9th overall. And it's the truth. Man, if that guy was like Trier, where he was like undrafted, he'd be gone.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even be. Yep. This is like ridiculous. Again, I know he had some family stuff. He was injured. I get all of that, but he has regressed, and he's a shooting guard that can't shoot. He's undersized, doesn't play any defense, and he's not it's not like he's like a real pure point guard in the sense that he's racking up the assists. I mean, he couldn't get minutes over Frank Ntilikina and Elfrid Payton. I mean, this is not somebody that I've been speaking out for a while now that he's just not the one. He's not worth the investment. I think somebody else would be a better option for that roster spot. And maybe we'll find that out halfway through the season, whenever it is. But I'm happy that he's at least taking it seriously and trying to work with, Rauf and who knows what that will lead to.
I do like that he's working with Rauf. I think that's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction.
Fantastic. But from what I've seen thus far, that's the only redeeming thing that I'm going to, say at this point.
Troy.
Oh, man. DSJ. All right. So maybe
I love these monologues, by the way.
Here we go.
Like, oh man. You're sitting, I just imagine you sitting by a fucking fire.
Well, like one of those pipe.
In a smoking jacket, DSJ. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I have the winter coat on as I say it. Man, let me just. I think I always start out this way. I want to give some stats. 2019-2020 season, points per game 5.5, assists 2.9, field goal percentage 34.1, from 3 29.8, free throws 50.9, 50.9%, PER 7.4. For his career, his points per game is 12.5, assists 4.5, field goal percentage 40, 31.4, and then free throws high at 64.7 with a PER of 11.9 for his career. Just based off of numbers, if you hear that for somebody, you either see two things: G League or role player. Somebody that you would like, maybe, okay, he may be the second option off the bench. This is based off his numbers and nothing else. And now you take into the account, okay, he was a first round draft pick. Okay, I guess. What was he in Dallas? Okay, he had a good season with Dallas, but then he's gotten progressively worse since his first season and hasn't had another outbreak since. So I understand. I get the belief in the organization. They want to believe in these draft picks. They're young, and DSJ is still young. So I see the Knicks giving him a year. If they can't find a trade that makes sense for DSJ, I can see them giving DSJ a year, trying to get his game back to some form of what it was before, or at least improve. If he at least improves, I feel like that would be a right step in his career, especially on his contract year. I mean, he has to do something good this year, because if he doesn't, it's likely he's going to be joining Jeremy Lin. So I don't know what's going to happen with DSJ at this point, but I can say these two things. Is he going to get a shot with the Knicks? Yes. He probably won't move unless a trade makes sense with him. That's my belief in it.
He has no value. He has no trade value.
Right. That's why I think you still have to build it up. But there are some teams, at least whispers, that people say that, they would like to at least engage in his talent to see what happens. But I mean, what talent are you engaging with? You don't know enough about it yet. I mean, and if you've seen his numbers and just look at what he's been bringing to the table since he's started and every season since, it's not much to go off of. Like I said, his numbers speak to a role player. So if you trade him, you're likely going to get something less than a role player. And then it makes the argument of, do you even want that? And in my opinion, the answer is no. The trade value, unfortunately, you have to get more for DSJ to trade him for it to make sense.
You're getting nothing. You're getting nothing.
You're not going to. That's my point. Yeah, you're not going to.
There's not even a trade.
You're getting a Theo Pinson.
There's no trade. There is no trade. There's nobody who's trading for him. There's nothing. You couldn't give him away. There's nothing. It doesn't exist. It does not exist. And what sucks even more is that this is one of the things that they got in return for Porzingis. So I think that makes some Knicks fans go like, feel some type of way. But that was all about those picks and about unloading the malcontent. That had nothing to do with, Dennis Smith Jr. was like, oh, well, maybe he'll turn out. That was Dallas saying, yeah, we know he sucks. We've got Luka. Like, have fun. There is no trade. I didn't mean to cut you off, Detroit, but I'm just the notion that any team would even give up an asset for him is beyond me. If you cut him tomorrow, he'll sign with a team, but he'll be like a project, like maybe see the floor, in garbage time. That would be it. And it's sad for like a 23-year-old player, 22. It's sad.
A lot of Knicks fans, and I'm talking about even in our group, a lot of Knicks fans have a belief in this kid. I can even read one of these comments.
Knicks fans want Chris Paul here too.
or believe Anthony Davis and Giannis are going to be in our starting lineup in a few years as well. So yeah, I clearly understand the illusion and the the belief what Knicks fans have sometimes isn't actually what happens on paper. But the point I'm just mentioning the fact that we have DSJ, and some people, even though we have him, seen his season, hear his numbers, will still fight you on the fact that he's a gem, he's a talent, and why would we give up on somebody who has so much potential? And again, this is from paraphrasing a comment, somebody we would have drafted if we didn't draft Ntilikina. Just say.
Oh man, in a world of what ifs. Look, let me put a bow on this real quick. DSJ, I doubt you're listening to this, but if you are, let me give you some words of advice. Get in your car, drive down to Norfolk, Virginia, and there's a restaurant called Pasha Meze. It's a fantastic place to eat, and you're gonna want to eat there because it's Turkish food, and that's where you're gonna fucking end up playing. So you better get used to the way that the food tastes. Okay, he's gone. He's not gonna last much longer than maybe halfway through the season before he ends up on another team on another team's bench, and nobody is going to give him an offer. It's not going to happen. I respect the fact that he's trying to improve his game, but I don't think that there's much gain to improve. So that's my take on it. And we are going to close this thing out for the day. I want to thank Jay for coming on the show and listening to us lambast over bullshit. Go listen to the New York Knicks show. It's fantastic. Jay, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And we'd love to have you come back anytime that you're willing to hear us fucking just squawk about this team.
I would love to have Mark on as well next time as well. You two together would be amazing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's do it.
I don't have much to close out with. Knicks fans, look, it's up in the air, but it looks like we're going to suck for a long time. So go to sleep mad about it and keep suffering.
Because nothing will change.